I tell people that you're a farmer and a grower first, and then a winemaker. Because some people become winemakers, but to grow things from the earth, like it's a different level of understanding.
The best educational part for me is to taste the wine. That's how you educate your palate, I feel.
Hey everybody, this is a very, very special time. We are here with Gerardo, Los Cuernos winemaker, the individual behind what you're tasting inside of the can. So welcome, Gerardo.
Welcome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you. A year ago, we were just right here.
That's right. This is where it all started.
So my name is Gerardo Espinosa. I'm the winemaker for Los Cuernos. I'm a third generation farmer. Grew up majority of my life in Lodi. I'm happy to be here with you guys, man.
Awesome, thanks. Well, I think we can kick it off. I'll kind of give it to Zeke, and we'll just kind of get going and have some fun.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And we wanted to make petite Syrah wines for a long time, and we cold called you, and we looked it up. We saw your background, and you made exceptional wine. So I want to wind it back from the other end of the phone. So we called you out of the blue, said we wanted to make a canned wine, and we want to come down here. Then we came and met you.
Yes.
From your point of view, what was it like meeting us in the beginning of this project?
Yeah, it was fascinating.
And you can be honest, Gerardo.
Yeah, literally. It was fascinating because I have never thought about doing wine in cans. And I think that was my first reaction. Wine in cans. Who are these guys, right? I mean, that was the first thing. And you introduced yourself as a somm, and I'm like, okay, well, they know their wine, but okay, let's talk, and that was one of the conversations initially that we had on the phone. And I think Cory said, we'll be there next week. Like, holy shit, it's coming, so yeah, no, seeing you guys, seeing the energy, and just the conversation, the initial conversation that we had, not just in the phone, but personal, being in person. I thought it was fascinating. For me, it was fascinating because I never thought about doing wine in cans. And when you guys pitched the idea, it kind of like opened my eyes to the horizon, and wanted to know more about it. So right after that, after you guys left, I literally went and opened a can of wine. And I said, this is shit. That was we gotta do something about this. So we need to do something better, So that was it's always been my perspective, how can we do a wine in cans that is going to be better than what's on the market right now, because I have opened maybe a couple dozens of canned wines, and I have never found a wine that I can say I truly like it. I can drink it, but I don't know if I really can enjoy it, so that was always my first reaction to the project. We want to make sure that the wine, and when you guys pitched the idea, we want to make high-end wine in a can, that was always my focus, to make sure that I source the great wine to be in the can.
That's great. So, and we don't have to get into technical details here unless you want to, but I would like to talk about for a second the nuance of making wine specifically for a can opposed to a bottle like you were used to.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fair to say it's very different making wine specifically for a can. So
right.
From my point of view and from Zeke's point of view, it was obvious. It was like, wait, who are these guys? What's going on? Right. But then once we kind of settled into it and you were like, okay, I kind of see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And now you immediately got very curious. I remember talking, and you were, even amidst your crazy world and crazy days, running Lodi Crush, having your own vineyards, making wine for other people too.
Right.
I remember you even, saying some things like you were kind of, finding some books and some technical stuff, some literature on specific kind of nuances of the canned wine stuff.
Right.
And even like in your spare time or on your nightstand, every waking minute, it seemed like you were just like kind of going there. So is there any kind of...
Yeah, so literally after you guys left, I kind of immersed myself into learning why wine in cans, what are the pros and cons, right? I mean, and there's a lot of studies out there, but there's not enough information there's enough information to give you the basics, right, of what the reaction is for a wine to be in a can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wanted to learn more about it. Call a few people that I knew were doing similar projects or were canning stuff, and the first thing that, some of the main keys is, keys for the wine being in a can is be careful with the reaction of SO2 and the actual aluminum. And so, learning about how the cans get coated with, different materials. And to me, that was just fascinating, just to learn that, and then what the reaction is going to be with our product, how is that going to affect the can? Is it what's going to be the reaction? Are we going to have any reaction? So throughout the process, even when we canned the first time, I wanted to learn everything. So I wanted to learn, from the wine perspective, where I wanted it to be technical and analysis wise, and all the chemistry behind the wine until I got into the can.
Yep.
So to me, that was just fascinating to learn that, and I'm still learning. I'm still in the process of learning, and every so often I open a can of wine and I'm expecting to see something, and I'm like, okay, this is still good. This is what I want. It's tasting good. It's tasting the way that we want it to taste. And it's been in the can for already a couple months, and the wine is tasting awesome.
August, the very end of August, right? So was it August 3? We're like 8 or 9 months in.
Yeah,
and I taste them often.
Yeah.
As well, so when you made the wines, and like we can go into the non-vintage as well.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's talk. How about the time when you tasted us wines? We met at San Diego.
Yeah.
And we had discussed the wines a bunch, but this was like the real moment of truth. Right. So,
hold on. We're pausing for the train. This is the Lodi train, by the way, guys. This is historical. All right, you can continue.
But and I'll go into how I felt about the wines, but we wrote all those notes. We said all these wines we'd try.
Yeah.
We did want you to have some input, but you don't know us well. So one, what did you think about when you tried the initial wines? Because you did them non-vintage, which is different. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so through the whole process, right, studying the idea, studying the project, and when the conversation came, what vintage we want to do, because we have wines that are aging for 18 months, 12 months, 24 months, so I wanted to know, okay, so are we doing a 22, a 23? What vintage are we going to do, right? So that was a cool conversation when we had it, right?
Yeah.
Where you were like, let's just do a non-vintage. So to me, that was like freedom.
Yeah,
let's do it.
And the reality is, even though the byproduct of that was freedom for you, it wouldn't have happened without you. Because that, the reason, and maybe people don't know this, but the reason that Los Cuernos is non-vintage, the only reason Los Cuernos is non-vintage is because the three of us were on a phone call, and it organically came out of that. Because ultimately we determined, based on your questions, and we were like, oh my gosh, he's got a great point. So you're saying we can make a better wine for less cost, and you're like, yes.
And without limitations, right? We didn't have our hands tied to the vintage because, as we all know, each vintage can be different on the wine, right? You can manipulate the wine, but Mother Nature gives you what it gives you, right? And that's what it is. So when that conversation came, let's just do a non-vintage, I was like, yeah, I got it, and knowing you guys based on what the research that, after you guys left, I was like, who's fucking Cory, who's Zeke, I'm like researching, okay.
You hired the private
investigator. Right, so no, not that far, but, I'm looking at your guys's, and, you guys know wine, so you guys come from a background of you guys know your wines, so
We know selling wines.
well, and so that's the main. And another conversation we had, I can make all the wine I want, But if I don't have the right people to sell the wine, then you know.
So we're a perfect match.
So yeah,
we can't make
yeah. So I mean, learning that of you guys, you know, and the background that you guys had, I knew I needed to bring good expectations, you know, and bring good wine, based on the initial notes that we had about what kind of styles we want, what kind of wine style in general. I was freaking out, you know, when I was on an airplane bringing samples, and then, you know, I'm like, man, well, what if these guys don't like the wine? You know, what if they say this is shit wine? You know, go back and do more. You know, I don't know. And literally, when I was doing the blends, the first time I was doing the blends, this table, I had about at least 30 to 40 samples of wines that I was just pulling from my cellar, from cellars, you know, just tasting and blending, right? Trying to get to those points that you guys gave me initially, you know, the style of wine that you guys wanted to create. So yeah, no, that was kind of cool.
I have a question, and I think we'll get to the, you know, when you talk the samples data for the first time, but let's go back for a second on the non-vintage piece, because you were talking about, I mean, obviously it's not normal, at least in California wine. So I would love for you to talk about, like, you know, I think everybody knows non-vintage allows us to source fruit from, you know, you know, we're not limited to a particular year, right?
Right.
But how does that look? How do you think about it? Or what's like an example or a good way to think about it for others, specifically with the red wines, right? Because, you know, you mentioned, you know, you had some wine that was like 12, 24. So how does that, like, how should we look at that with the reds?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, you know, each year when we produce wine, we have different styles, or different flavors, or different aromas, or different, you know, whatever that year that we produce the wine, you know, it might be different from year to year. Mm-hmm. So having a non-vintage, it gave me the freedom to not just focus in one vintage, you know. So my mind went like, okay, 2022, it was a wet year, you know, the fruit came a little bit lighter, but the 2020, it was aged, it's been aging longer, it's a little bit more robust, a little bit more bigger, a little bit more, you know, not too much water. Mother Nature didn't give us enough water, so the vines were more stressed. So, you know, putting those two components together, okay, so let's blend it together, you know, let's see how the red blend comes, you know, and that's when I say freedom, that's the freedom that I got, you know, that I can picture the wine, how the wine was produced for that year, comparing it to another year, and having wines aged a little longer, you know, with the barrel flavors and characters that we get from the barrels. Yeah, you know, just putting all that together, blending that together, you know, I think the red wines are just, you know, kill them. Yeah.
Like, so, you know, what came through my mind is when I tried the red blend, I don't know if you remember this, I tried it and I couldn't believe, I was like, oh my God, this is it. And I was like, this is a perfect wine. Don't touch it. And we had thought of making that wine for 10 years. And I tried over 300 red blends, Cory's probably 200, of just fine tuning it. And then when I tasted it, I was like, oh my God, that was it. So for you, for doing non-vintage, did you know you were making better wine? Like, cause I tried it right away. I'm like, okay, this is good. Did you know when you were making it? Like,
yeah, I mean,
this is better than the price point.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I did. I think it did give me the flexibility to play with multiple styles, right? So when you first tasted it, you know, I wanted feedback. I wanted, like, dude, I want you to tell me what's wrong with the wine.
Give me the real.
Yeah. And you were like, don't touch it. I'm like, wait, you know, is that easy? Yeah. So no, I mean, I think having a non-vintage, it gives you the availability to create extraordinary wine. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You know, and you're not stuck to 1 year, and you don't have to manipulate. So, you know, there's others that, you know, they have to manipulate the wine so it can taste the same every year. For me, is playing with the vintages, playing with the different characters of the wine that we got that from that year. So that's how I manipulate the blends, just playing with that.
You make it look easy. Let's ask this question. When do you first remember like trying wines? Like how young were you where you're tasting wines from the vineyards? I mean, tasting grapes and then tasting finished wines and blends. Like how long have you been tasting wine?
Oh my God, I cannot even answer that question. I just, literally the first time I don't remember, but all I remember is my grandfather having, I don't know if you remember those gallon carboys or whatever they call them.
Like
the glass
growlers,
And if I remember correctly, it was Carlo Rossi.
Yeah.
In a jar, right? In a jug. Yeah, and he would drink it out of that in a cup. He would not even have wine glasses. And I remember smelling it, right? I mean, I want to say not even 10 years, maybe. We will come and visit my grandfather, and I remember seeing those in his house. I think that was my first reaction to wine, because in Mexico, vino is any kind of alcohol, right? Like that's the reference. It's not like right here, wine, we have spirits, we have beer. In Mexico, we have vino, which refers to an alcohol, right? And then we have cerveza, which is beer, So, and then if you want to get more into the real, like rum, tequila, but vino was it's like a general word, right? So yeah, I mean, that was my introduction. And then when I first drank it was probably in Mexico. Actually, I was with my cousin, and he opened a Woodbridge bottle out of Lodi, right? Woodbridge. And I said, dude, I live not too far from this winery, and we were drinking it. It was, it was in Mexico, so it was like a imported wine from the United States in Mexico, So fancy California wine. And when we got here, I mean, that bottle was like $10, not even $10, right? I'm like, geez. Yeah. And then I just started immersing myself on learning about the wine, drinking a lot of wine. I mean, I have tasted I don't know how many different wines, but that's how I immersed myself into learning more about wine. My first reaction when I drank that first glass with my cousin, literally was like, I'm in a wine region, in Lodi, right? I mean, this is where this bottle comes from. So when I came back, I was like all in about learning about wine. I wanted to learn. My family had the vineyards. Started making wine. And yeah, throughout my career, it's been tasting a lot of wine, different styles, trying to get to the new trends right now, just different styles of wine. And, the best educational part for me is to taste the wine, taste the wines. That's how you educate your palate, I feel.
I mean, Zeke touched on it a little bit, but, for forever, it seems like we've been wanting to make Petite Sirah driven blends out of Lodi.
Yeah.
And then it was just too serendipitous that you kind of came into the picture. So, and you touched on it a little bit too, but if you don't mind, I would love to know even a little more about like the history of your history, whether it's you, your family, specifically in Lodi, and then specifically maybe with Petite Sirah, just the grape.
Yeah. So
what kind of relevance does that have to you?
Yeah. So my grandfather immigrated here in the 1940s, right? To this Central Valley area. He literally was a farm laborer. That's how he immigrated to the United States, as a farm laborer. Throughout the years, he raised a family in Mexico, and eventually my uncles immigrated to the U.S. After they were done with the universities. They all graduated with agricultural engineers. Okay. So the farming has been in our roots for decades, right? I mean, generations. My grandfathers, both of my mom and dad side, they've been in the farming for a long time. So when they first planted the first vineyard in early 80s in Clemens Hills.
Okay. Anaya, or it's now called Anaya, but it wasn't.
It's Anaya Vineyards, but it was, we named it, actually the first vineyard, we named it after my grandmother. Yeah. So we called it Viñedos Aurora, which means Aurora Vineyards. and the first varietal that they planted was Petit Syrah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what year was that?
it was early
Approximately.
80s, and they planted that because back then that was the varietal that the wineries were using for blenders. They weren't using it for a standalone Petit Syrah. It was strictly a blender.
Great, like color,
Big tannins, deep colors, so they will use that to finish all of the other wines, all the other varieties that they were making. So that was the first grape that they planted. And then they obviously grew to different other varieties, but that was the first variety that they planted. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you remember any like Petit Syrah specific wines you tasted for the first time that you liked, or?
Mine.
Yeah.
I made my own. Was
that the first wine you made?
So the first wine that I made was a Petit Syrah.
Oh, yes.
It was back in 2007. So the first barrel that I made back in 2007, I literally made a barrel of Petit Syrah in my garage.
Awesome.
Yeah, and from the vineyard, we picked the grapes ourselves. That was my first barrel. We fermented it. It was my baby, So let it sit in the barrel for 12 months. We bottled it in our garage, by hand, and let it sit for, I don't know, 3-4 months. We started opening bottles, and I sent a sample to the state fair wine competition.
Okay.
And it won gold.
Yeah.
The first one. So I was like very pumped, right? So the next year I made 2 barrels, and then it grew to by the time I knew, my garage was full of barrels, and it was like a 2-3 year process. And that's when I decided to make my first brand in honor of my grandmother, Viñedos Aurora. We had a tasting room. We did it for a couple of years. Then I immersed myself to make wines for other people's. But that was the first. That was literally the first Petit Syrah that I made.
Cool. That's awesome.
I don't know if that was the first one that I tasted, but that was the first one that I literally made. And yeah,
I do want to talk about the reserve because it's a new story. Like, we knew that the wines were good. Like we done great on the other wines, but we were like, all right, we're a canned wine. I remember telling you, just make the best possible wine.
Yeah.
And you don't care as much about the cost, but
yeah,
we wanted to do a $15 can.
Yeah.
That was one of our things.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how much people love that wine. And then because reserve, ooh, the reserve,
yeah,
we get this reaction all the time. So it's different than all the other wines.
Yeah.
Talk about how you thought about it, because we didn't give you direction except make the good one.
Yeah.
These ones, we had a really strong idea, but the one, your name is on the can. So literally, your name is on the can.
Yeah.
It's fabulous. Can you talk about how you thought about it from the beginning and what you did?
Yeah. So the first reaction when you guys said I want to make a reserve, I made a reserve before for an honor of my grandfather.
Oh.
And that wine, it was a base of Petit and Cabernet Sauvignon, right? So that was my first reaction.
You showed us and it almost looked exactly.
So when you guys showed me the package of the Reserva,
yes,
and
it was
I was like,
you had a
oh
moment.
my God, yeah, it was a moment. I was like, oh my God, this came
just naturally,
naturally, right? I literally, when you guys told me I want to make a reserve, I thought about that wine that I made. Right,
you got to send us the picture, by the way.
Yeah.
And then when I think Cory sent me the packaging, right? How the can was gonna look.
Label.
Matte color, black on black. That was exactly the same bottle that I did for my grandfather.
So crazy.
It was crazy, yes. So no, I think that was my first base. I want to trying to replicate that wine. And that's kind of the blend that we have. That's pretty similar. So yeah,
it drinks really well right at the end.
What's your favorite part about the Reserva wine specifically?
I think it's that the sentimental part of it, right? That it came from with background of what the wine that I created a couple years back, right? And then at the same time, I did selected some of the best cab that I could find, in the cellar. So so that was very special. I wanted to make sure that the wine was going to be up to that title.
It's fair to say the Reserva has like the fruit in there has more age than, let's say, the red blend.
I think it's a little bit more elegant to me. It has that little bit more elegant mouthfeel. Very balanced, smooth, fruitful, not fruit forward, but it has nice fruit up in front. So it's not a Napa Cab or nothing like that. It's just more truthful to the varieties. So you can actually taste a little the Petite Syrah, the Cab. So
it's got layers. Like to me, it's just it comes across the palate just a little more gentle than the red, which is the red one's higher out. So now, do you drink more canned wine now, Los Cuernos at home? Like, do you find it kind of? How do you send it?
He sent us a picture. He's in the park.
How is it like? Does it change a little bit how you think about wine drinking?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, it did open my vision, on canned wine. And now when I go to the store, I see other canned wines and I buy them just to see how they taste, But no, having the brand, and to the level quality that we put it to, I think it's killer.
You have to keep making them this good. That's the problem.
Yeah. No pressure.
What's your favorite thing about the Chard? I don't know. I'm just...
Chard, I like the Chard. I think it's a nice summer wine. I think it's nice and chilled. I like the oak character that it has. It's not super pronounced, but it has a nice little finish oak, little buttery. I think that wine is a good pool wine. It's just one of those that you can sip and not just during the summer, but I feel like that wine, during the winter, next to a fireplace, it will be killer. Yeah.
You know how many times I've heard, and I think everyone will see me, they'll say, I normally don't like Chardonnay, but I like your Chardonnay. Like, I've heard that at least 10 or 20 times.
Yeah.
Like, people tell us that all the time. And I think one other cool thing is there really isn't a favorite. Like, when I've sold a wine portfolio for many different wineries, usually they got one that's their lead, and like we're pretty balanced on whether someone likes the Reserve, the Chard, the Rosé, which is pretty good.
Yeah. No, I think the wines are pretty solid. I really happy about the wines. The quality of the wines. I think the bubbles. I was a little hesitated on the bubbles initially, but then I think Cory made a good call. Just pump those bubbles and and let's go. I think they're not offensive. I think they're nice and balanced. And I think the fruit that the wine carries already kind of balanced that total. Yeah. No, I think the wines are solid. Very happy. Yeah.
How you feeling about Sauv Blanc?
Let's do it. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, we will create a nice Sauvignon Blanc. I think the sources that I have right now to create a nice Sauvignon Blanc are pretty killer. I'm excited.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah, we tried a bunch of them, and I brought them home to my wife to try.
Yeah.
And she tried this one. She's like, this one's not good enough to be Los Cuernos.
Yeah.
$17 model, so right away, like she knows that we're at a certain level, which is great.
I have a kind of random question about, you're obviously a winemaker, you live in wine country, this is your life.
Yeah.
Naturally, you're going to have a lot of friends and family that are also into wine at high levels. Is there like a particular example that you can remember, since obviously we've had Los Cuernos where someone that that's tried the wine that maybe had, because what made me think of this question is we met somebody that knows you who's a head winemaker in town. We actually, not too far down the road, we passed the spot, right? Zeke and I happened to meet him in LA. long story short, he tasted our wine and he was just like tripping. He's like, "Oh my god,"
Yeah.
But I just wonder if you had any of those stories or
Actually,
an example you could share.
I do have a great story. I have a mentor. She was basically a great mentor. She really helped me a lot through my career and still does. When I initially brought her or pitched the idea that, hey, this group of guys contacted me, and she's very traditional. Okay, so worked in high-end wineries in Napa, developed great programs, and when I first pitched the idea or mentioned it to her, hey, I'm doing a can of wines project or wine in cans project. She's like, oh my God, what are you getting yourself into? And I said, hey, listen, because every time I feel like I have to convince her, right? Like, hey, let's just try it. It's a new thing, so she was very open, at the end. I mean, after I talked to her, and then I gave her literally like a sample box.
Okay.
I said, take it with you after we can it, right? And this is months after I first mentioned it to her. I said, here, take it and try it. She called me. She goes, this wine is good. She goes, I don't know if I can drink it out of a can, but if I pour it in a glass, this wine is excellent. So she was, that to me, that was like, oh, okay, we got something, right? I did something, yeah. And I mean, I have multiple stories about people that I have poured wine to out of the can without them knowing that it's coming from my can.
Love it.
And they're blown away when I show them the can. They're like, from a can? Yeah. So the reaction that I get from people when I see their faces, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I love those stories. One of the things we say is you're going to be surprised, and we just see it all the time. Just a matter of time. Like, we just got to get more people trying it.
Let's go.
What else should we talk about? What are we missing?
I mean, we talked a lot about the wines. We talked about the story. I don't know if we're going to talk about the vineyards when we go out there. I love when he talks about like drainage and soil and typicity.
Well, let's maybe talk about it may not be directly correlated to Los Cuernos, but maybe some typical like Lodi kind of. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, we could talk about like the Lodi terroir. You can talk about the grapes, drainage, even just cool stories. Like, doesn't always have to be like.
Yeah, right.
So I can talk a little bit about where we source the Petit Syrah from.
Yeah.
Technically, right? I can say, it comes from the Clemens Hills, which is a little bit more red clay.
Cool. Perfect. Let's do it. So can you tell us?
It's the things that pop on the table.
Oh, yeah.
I just touched myself. Like,
okay, so cool. So let's do that then. How about, can you tell us a little bit about Petit Syrah and the particulars kind of area, kind of the area around here?
Yeah, so the Petit Syrah, we are sourcing it from the Clemens Hills ABA, American Viticultural Association, right? It's part of the Lodi appellation, but it's a sub-appellation. Clemens Hills, that's where our vineyards are. The particular vineyard that we're going to go visit is called Potrero Vineyards. So it used to be a cattle ranch before, and it's right at the beginning of the Sierra Hills. So you can start to see the hills, red clay, very rich soils, and I feel that even in the Lodi appellation, that's the best Petit Syrah that we grow in this area.
Oh, wow.
We have the McCollum River, which is a little bit more sandy soils next to the river.
Okay.
Right. So those Petit Syrahs are typically less robust. They're a little bit more mellow tannins, and Petit Syrahs are typically high tannins, high acids, deep colors.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we get where we're sourcing the Petit Syrah from. Clemens Hills area, I think it's the perfect area for it.
So did you work the Clement Hill Vineyards?
Yeah.
He's all, it's my life, man.
Yeah. I mean, technically, for me to make wine, the wine has to be made in the vineyards. So I have to make sure that the vineyards are.
What do you mean by that?
So and this is again comes from a great teacher, right? Who is my mentor. Should I say her name?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So my mentor Heather, her her philosophy, which it's kind of now mine, is the vineyard is made in the vineyards. You know, so what that means is if you're producing great, so if you're producing great fruit, by the time it comes to the winery, you're just babysitting the wine, right? You don't have to manipulate it. So if you're producing great grapes, you don't have to worry too much in the winery about the final product. So to me, it's very important that the farming side of the wine is made correctly. You know, so I want to make sure that those grapes are to the higher expectations that I want to.
It all comes clear now, because remember his quote on the can? It's like nature nurtures excellence.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, that's the key. You know, make sure that the grapes are to the high quality before it gets to the can.
You know, I tell people that you're a farmer and a grower first, and a winemaker. Some people become winemakers.
Yeah.
But to grow things from the earth, like, it's a different level of understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fascinating for me because I mean right now we're farming about 500 acres throughout the area, you know, and my family and myself, and majority of my time, you know, I spend it in the vineyards than the winery. You know, I come to the winery every day, but right now during ripeness, you know, I'm in the vineyards making sure that they have enough water, that they're getting enough sun exposure, that they're getting enough wind, airflow through the vines, you know, and that's all key, you know, how the grapes are going to be.
Well, thanks, Gerardo. Actually, super excited to have Gerardo with us in Lodi. I call him the Steph Curry of our team. So he gotta say that.
I know he likes saying that. I know he likes to think he's like Steve Kerr. I don't know.
No. It's not because of that. It's because without great wine, like our wine being exceptional, none of the rest of Los Cuernos work.
It's true.
And like the fact that our wine is exceptional means we can sell it with confidence. We can give it to people. We watch people enjoy this wine all the time. And so if the wine's not great, we couldn't do all that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Salud.
Yeah.